Hey guys, what's up, man? It's Met here. I know I haven't made a video in a long time, so I appreciate you guys watching. But I just want to give you guys an explanation of my thesis. I'm not a big crypto trader. Like, I kind of just am a crypto collector, I guess you could say, because all I do is I buy and hold, and I really almost never do trades. Like, it's to the point where like I'm afraid to trade, pretty much. Like, I gotta psych myself into it to do a trade. Um, But I recently did do a big trade, and you know, this is kind of related, but like one of my friends died, and this guy was like one of these guys who was always on his shit. He was always the guy who, you know how men are like naturally competitive. He kind of made you feel bad about yourself, like you weren't doing enough to improve your life. He was one of those guys. He wasn't like the crash out friend. So when he died, it was like, damn, like first of all, he's the first person I knew closely to me that I died that was a peer. Second, I was like, damn, like I always felt death was something that was kind of predetermined. It's some date in the future. You don't know when it is, but it's pretty much going to happen. But it made me realize, like, damn, like dying is something you can actually like make happen. I know that sounds super dark and depressing, but like, it's not just some predetermined thing. And then I thought about like my mindset over the last couple of years has been kind of like trending towards a loss of agency. It's almost like I feel like a jellyfish in the ocean, and like the ocean winds are going to carry me one way. I don't have that much control. I can maybe, pedal a little bit in some directions, but in general, the currents are going to go where they go. But after this, it made me realize, like, damn, like you can die randomly and you can make it happen tonight. I'm not saying that's a good thing. You shouldn't do that. If you have those types of thoughts, go talk to someone. There's a hotline. But like, I was like, damn, like, and I thought back when I first got into Ethereum, like, that was a decision when I bought Ethereum at $4 that it severely affected the course of my life. So I know that, the whole nothing ever happens meme, at least when applied to your personal life, is BS. You can make things happen. Anyways, back to the original point of this video. So I've always liked Zcash. I've been in crypto since late 2016. I liked Zcash back then. I was more of a Monero guy at the time. But like, it's not like I hated Zcash. I just like, I'd rather hold Monero. That's why this channel name is XMR Met, because Monero Met, Money Met. That's sometimes what some of my friends would jokingly call me, because I was always trying to find a way to get money. Right. So Zcash is a coin I've been aware of for a long time. And the thing I like about Zcash is there's no pre-mine. Right. There's no pre-mine. And when a coin has no pre-mine, essentially what occurs is this. The starting supply, you create a new coin, there's no pre-mine, starting supply of that coin is 0. And by the end of the first 4-year halving cycle, there's going to be, I don't know, 10 million coins out there in circulation. So the inflation rate when you start a non-pre-mined coin is actually like infinity %, right? Because you start at 0 and you end up at a non-zero value. So that's the thing, is like when you create a blockchain for the first couple of halving cycles, it's not going to be a good investment, especially if it was fairly launched. And that's kind of the point, right? Even when Bitcoin was originally created, it wasn't that great of an investment until it had that original run, right? The one to, I think, was like 25, 50, then 1,000. But that was still after enough halving cycles where it became worth it to accumulate Bitcoin. And what I mean worth it to accumulate Bitcoin is you get to a point where essentially the rate of growth of the Bitcoin money supply is growing significantly slower, or is growing at the same rate as the US dollar. The difference being, in the future, the Bitcoin growth rate will be significantly lower while the US dollar will be significantly higher. So when a blockchain is designed fairly, it's going to perform badly in price for the first X couple of years, unless you pre-mine it, sell it to VCs, and they'll hold it. Eventually, you'll get a negative 99% dump candle once they dump on you. So when Zcash first got released, like, it is a coin that is one of the few coins out there that actually has a unique value proposition, right? Like, it shields your transactions, prevents people from seeing who sent money to you, who you sent money to, and how much money do you have, right? Which, by the way, hiding how much money you have is underrated. Like, if you can go to a coffee shop and they now know your net worth, you may not want to buy coffee in a whole lot of third world countries, right? Because you're literally telling people, hey, come kidnap me and you can get lots of money. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to do. When a blockchain is launched fairly and efficiently, it's going to be a bad investment for a couple of years, and that's the point, right? Because the inflation of that coin has to get to a point where it's like, wait a second, in the future, the dollar will be higher, this will be lower, and therefore this will appreciate. And so Zcash, it had its first halving in it released 2016, first halving in 2020, second halving in 2024. And now I think we're getting to we're going to hit, well, I think we're at 12.5% inflation now. And we're going to hit, next cycle is going to be even lower. It's going to be like 4 to 6%. And eventually you're going to start getting to really low inflation numbers, which is like what we have right now with Bitcoin, where Bitcoin is even less inflationary than gold when you compare it to the amount of gold that's mined every year as a percentage to the amount of gold in circulation, as opposed to Bitcoin mined every year compared to Bitcoin in circulation. So that's the first thing. One, it had really bad price action for a couple of years, which makes it a good investment opportunity now because pretty much every investment is pumped to high heaven right now. Stocks, houses, crypto, Pokemon cards, collectibles, you can't find a good investment right now. But I think I found one. I think it's Zcash. The second thing being Zcash is very closely following Bitcoin cypherpunk principles. A lot of the OG Zcash developers actually collaborated with Satoshi, like Zuku, the guy who founded Zcash. And to think about the psychology of an average Zcash holder, this is a coin that when it first got released, I think it hit like $4,900. And then it was like down only for like 8 years till it went to like $20. Anyone who held Zcash for that period is literally deranged and insane. They're never selling. They really believe. So pretty much Zcash has the strongest hands in the entire crypto market right now, even more than Bitcoin. And it has the same circulating supply and projected emission schedule as Bitcoin. So right now, if you think about the 1 in a million club for Bitcoin, you got to have 21 Bitcoin to be, let's say a million people, they have 21 million Bitcoin, though that's the million club, right? You could be 1 in a million Bitcoin holders, which sounds like a lot of people, but there's like 9 billion people on the planet. So for every Bitcoin holder, there'll be, in that little thought experiment, there'll be 9,000 people with no Bitcoin. Who do you think is going to have all the money? Anyway, so the average Zcash holder is insanely deranged. They're absolutely never selling, even if it goes up, because if they cared about money, they would have sold 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Right? And then so you have those two things. The first thing being, it's one of the only blockchains out there that actually had a fair release schedule. The holders are absolutely deranged and they're never selling. These are the types of people who will like try and buy a banana from you using cryptocurrency. You're like, oh, gotta look up my wallet now. This guy wants to buy a banana from me at a farmer's market. Those types of guys, they walk around barefoot. Weird hippie, tech hippie guys. So they're never selling. Right? So at this point, we also have the new treasury company. I think MicroStrategy single-handedly is responsible for like driving Bitcoin from like 4 to 100K. So what could one good Zcash treasury company do? That's excluding all the grassroots support. It has one of the longest standing, most legitimate communities in crypto, in the sense that they don't just post shitty AI generated memes. Like they actually have discussions about cryptography, privacy, and so forth. Also, one thing, it's like Monero, it has a 3-bit, I believe it has a 3 or 4-bit privacy model where when you send a transaction to someone, it gets mixed with either 8 or 16 other 7 or 15 other transactions. So like the anonymity set of every transaction you send it could be up to 15 other people. Now, remember, everything that goes on a blockchain, whether it's an encrypted blockchain or not, is up there forever. Or if it's a shuffled blockchain like Monero, right? It's possible that these transactions could be deshuffled in the future with future advancements in computing. So that's, especially for a user of privacy coins, that's kind of like a gigantic honeypot. The Zcash anonymity set, when you send a transaction on Zcash to another transaction using a shielded pool, the potential anonymity set is literally every other recipient in that shielded pool. So, like, it would take a lot more work to descramble the ZEC blockchain than it would take the XMR blockchain. And one thing also I think makes Zcash a better investment than Monero is Monero is already at tail emission. It's pretty much in terms of tokenomics, it's the equivalent of Dogecoin. There are no future emission reductions in Monero. Same thing with Dogecoin. There's going to be 10,000 Dogecoin created every block forever. There's no halvenings. Zcash, it has halvenings. And I think that's important. That's what's going to drive it, right? Like, even if we get to a point where, I'm not saying it's going to overtake Bitcoin, but let's say we get to a point where we hit, I don't know, we hit Dogecoin parity. That's a 3x from here, right? Let's say we hit Dogecoin parity. All right. Let's say we hit XRP parity. XRP is a complete scam, right? It's literally like 120 engineers taking advantage of 80 IQ boomer investors that know nothing. And it's sad, honestly. But let's say we reach XRP parity, like that's a 20x from here. I think it's worth it to buy Zcash. Personally, I bought $250,000 of Zcash in October, and I've just been riding it. Like, I'm up, not that much. I was up a lot more a couple weeks ago, but we'll see. Like, I'm going to hold this position for a couple of years. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll talk soon.